Hi, welcome back to the Busy Corner. Today I'm going to show you how to use a Navajo spindle to take out extra twist that's built up in your yarn as you're working on a project, so you don't have to cut the working yarn from your piece. I'm making a scarf, and one of my strands is a Z-twist yarn, and it came in a hank like this, which is not really a ball, and I had it on the floor in a bin, and as I used it, because I didn't put it in a ball first, really, and it kept coming off just that end, and that complicates and adds more spin to a Z-twist. If you remember, a Z-twist is usually the first ply if you're talking about singles, or if you buy roving, it's just one strand, and the spin of it is such that when you look at the fiber is going to be going uphill from left to right as you look at the strand of yarn, and just like the back leg of a letter Z. And this is just a simple scarf I'm making at seed stitch. Knit one, front one, back one. But I still had a lot of twist build up in this yarn, and you can see on the floor as it is, this portion of the working yarn is attached to the knitting. It's gotten very kinky. Now, if I let that continue to build up, my yarn is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. Now, and sometimes that's a good thing, like rug work, but you don't want it when you're knitting. So I want to take this out. So what I've done is cut off, I need about 55 more feet to finish my scarf, and I measured that out. I cut it out and I threw it on the floor. And of course now I don't know where my little end is. So I've already measured out, and you can see that even the yarn that was still on the ball was still a fairly tight kink. Now, you have to be careful. It's usually Z-twist I have a problem with. I've never had a problem with S-twist yarn. But you want to splay out the edge of that end of that yarn a little bit and wet it. You can use spit or water. And just wet the end of that yarn a little bit. And take your spindle, and you want to put that yarn on the spindle in such a manner that when you spin the whorl counterclockwise, it will wind the yarn on, like so. And you only need a few turns. Now, you can use your Navajo spindle on a rug. Some people like a bowl. You want it to spin, you want your whorl heavy enough that it will spin slow and long. That's the difference in a Navajo spindle. It doesn't have to be lightweight. You want some weight on, actually want some weight on that whorl. Now normally if you were making yarn and making Z-twist, you would go from your knee to your hip. But in this case, we want to take Z-twist out. In other words, we want to add S-twist. We want to go counterclockwise. And so once you have your yarn attached, make sure it's not going to come off of there. Oops, I took that off a little bit. And by the way, you do not have to be, I am not an expert spinner. I've only done little bits of spinning of actual wool. But you don't have to be good spinner to use it for this purpose. What you want to make sure though is that because you're actually taking some of your twist out, if you take out too much twist, your yarn will come apart. What holds it together is the twist itself. So you want to be careful and not overdo it when you're taking out that twist. But now I've let my yarn come up the shaft, and as I take this shaft, I'm just rolling it with my hand along my thigh, and I'm pinching the yarn, the working yarn, in my left hand, and I'm pinching it between my thumb and my index finger. By doing that, I'm going to stop the twist, or the removal of the twist. Nothing will happen beyond where I'm holding the working yarn. I'm pinching it. And so, as I roll now, you can see that the yarn is kind of flipping off the tip of my shaft. And as I do that, I can see that my yarn itself is untwisting. Now, if you're not careful, you'll take out too much. So you only want to make a few turns in this case. If I go too far, this will literally pull apart. Once you have it where you want it, and you say, well, that's enough, okay? If you had a big kink beyond there, you could slide your fingers out like so, and that will help to distribute the kink through the rest. Now, I don't want to take out any more twists than that. I can almost see that if I pulled hard, that could come apart. So, you know, I almost overdid it there just by yapping at you while I'm making the video. Now I still have it pinched, the working yarn here, in my left hand. And I'm going to pull very slightly and allow the yarn to roll back off the top of the shaft. You don't want to go too far. See, I'm almost out of arm length here. Now, spin it, because now you're going to put the yarn on the shaft. This is the cob, basically. You're just going to spin that on there, and you want to spin it on evenly. You don't want to pull too hard. And once you have it on, enough that you still have some up here on your shaft, now move your fingers out, pinch again, and spin. Look at your yarn, say, well, gosh, you know, I really don't have to take out too much here. One way to know is to let it relax between your hand and the top of your shaft. You can see I still have some twist there, but it's not kinking. Just a little bit. Again, you've got to be really careful when you're removing twist, especially if it's a short fibered yarn. You see now I've pulled my yarn back off my shaft. Now I'm going to put it onto the cob. It is not necessary, by the way, to have the yarn be on the top of your whorl. So, move your hand out now. And again, moving from your hip to your knee, roll slowly, check your yarn. Make sure it's not, if you've untwisted it too much, all you have to do, by the way, is you want to make a little thing here. Let's see, I have to go backwards to do this. You want to make a little half-inch knot, a little half-inch hitch knot at the top of your shaft. And if I had taken too much twist out, make a little knot so it doesn't come undone. Pinch it. Put some back in. See what I did there? Now, it'll start to come undone here, but it doesn't matter. The more I do it in this opposite direction now, knee to hip. See what I did? Because I went the opposite direction, I went clockwise. That's too much, I don't want that. So now, go ahead and take your half hitch knot off. Sometimes, if I just do this, that extra twist that I put in there will just distribute itself. I still have it pinched up here. But if that's satisfactory, then go ahead and wind it on. And again, you've got your yarn out to the side. Don't pull too hard. And now I'm just taking and I'm winding the whorl in the shaft counterclockwise the same way I did. I'm going to put it on what's called the cob. I guess it's still a cob if you're spinning it twice, like we are. So again, to add that counterclockwise spin, keep your arm out to the side and gently roll. And you'll find, of course, that the yarn farthest away from the piece you're working on is not going to be kinked up nearly as much as what was near the... So you don't have to turn it many turns. Once I get closer to the piece I'm knitting, I'll have to spin it more. You can make a Navajo spindle for about $3. So what you want to do is make several because we're just going to leave this yarn on here and knit it right off of this thing, because any little adjustment that you need to make So again, it's just counterclockwise. Check your yarn. Ask, well, is that the correct amount of twist? When this yarn was manufactured, it would appear that it was fairly tight to begin with, which complicates things. And I should have put it into a ball. I tried putting it onto my right side, as I've recommended in the past, and that actually made it worse. Now, you can see my technique is a little weak. If I was spinning, I would have a pretty lumpy yarn, and it would have come apart a few times by now. But for this, for respinning, you don't have to be a pro. And if you use a Navajo spindle this way, it will give you lots of practice for when you do want to spin yarn. And it's wonderful for plying. Here, now I'm getting up into the portion of the yarn that's closer to my scarf that I'm knitting. So I'll probably have to twist it. Twist my Navajo spindle more to compensate, to take out more of that Z. If you break your yarn while you're doing this, you will have to splice it together. You know, spread out your fibers and retwist it, put some more S in, or Z. By doing what I did, put the half hitch knot on the top and put more Z back in. And there's a lot of videos. Abby Frankmount has a very good book on using spindles. And there's good close-up videos of how to fix yarn if you've... And it's very common for it to happen. And the shorter the fiber you're using, the more likely it is that, you know, your yarn will actually come apart if you take out too much of the twist. And twist is the thing that holds it together. So now I'm getting closer and closer, you can see. There's where the worst of the twist was. Now, if I wasn't showing you how to do this, it would go a lot faster, but you get the idea. And if you purchase yarn or make yarn and it has too much twist in it, you can always do this first and avoid problems. Now, I'm almost up to the scarf, and you can see now, I only have a very slight amount of too much twist there. If I didn't take off enough twist, I can pull it back off the shaft. You do the same thing if you had too much S, but I've never had that problem when I've knit on the stationary rods. So now, kind of getting too close here. So now I have to where I have a workable yarn now that is not kinked up. And now all I need to do is I'm going to keep this. I'm not even going to take this off and put it in a ball. I'm just going to take it off, put it between my legs like so, and use it right off the spindle as I finish my scarf. And that's how you use a Navajo spindle to correct your yarn. Thanks for watching.